Ladies and gentlemen, I've been promising this video for a while. Every time someone asked me to break down Outbreak Perfected, my reply was basically, wait for the catalyst to get re-released. Admittedly, I had assumed that this would happen much sooner than it did. But as of the Witch Queen expansion, it's finally dropping again as a post-activity reward from our core playlist activities. So, the time has arrived. We'll take a look at Outbreak Perfected's stats and perks, run it through my general damage and functionality testing, and discuss its performance for both PvP and PvE. Also, we'll analyze some of the changes that are going to be affecting Outbreak Perfected next season. And if you do end up finding this content useful, helpful, or enjoyable, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. All are fine ways of supporting this video, and any support that you're willing to lend is always greatly appreciated. But I do have a lot to cover, so let's get things rolling with a quick overview of Outbreak Perfected. Outbreak Perfected is an exotic kinetic pulse rifle that can be directly purchased at the exotic weapon kiosk located near the vaults in the tower courtyard. This pulse fires at 450 rounds per minute with a 36 round magazine. As far as the stats, they're not overly impressive as a whole. The range is 68, which is solid given the weapon's fire rate, and it does have a 90 for the recoil direction stat, which does help keep the kick from the weapon fairly vertical. Almost everything else we're looking at here is pretty average, except for that 46 in stability, which is quite low across the entire weapon class. But the weapon doesn't feel terribly unruly in game, which we'll talk about coming up. The intrinsic trait is the corruption spreads. Outbreak creates Siva nanite swarms on rapid hits and precision kills. The exotic perk on this weapon is parasitism, stating that this weapon does more damage to enemies based on the number of Siva nanites that attach to them. Also boosting this weapon's performance is Outlaw, where precision kills greatly decrease reload times. And for the exotic catalyst, it's going to increase nanite damage, and enemies that die with nanites attached to them spawn additional nanites. So get ready for a lot of nanite talk as we move into the next section for our damage and functionality testing. Alright, I suppose we'll dive in and start talking nanites right off the bat, since that's kinda what makes the world go round for Outbreak Perfected. There's two ways to spawn them, rapid hits or precision kills. To see any nanites pop from rapid hits, you're gonna need to land 12 bullets, or 4 bursts. The number of nanites that spawn is random, between 1 and 3. And when they do spawn via rapid hits, it's most likely that they're gonna circle back around to catch the primary target. On a precision kill, a cloud of nanites is gonna spawn at the downed enemy's location, 9 in total. If there are any secondary targets in the area, these nanites will immediately begin the track towards them. Or they'll lay in wait for up to 4 seconds for an enemy to enter their vicinity before self-detonating. Each nanite that attaches itself to a target does about as much damage as 1 crit and 1 body shot from the weapon itself, provided you have the catalyst unlocked. It's approximately 30% less damage if you do not, if I'm remembering correctly. But more on the damage in just a moment. The other feature of the catalyst, if a nanite afflicted target dies, they'll spawn additional nanites. And it doesn't matter the source of the damage that secures the kill. If the enemy has nanites on them, they will spawn out 4 nanites on death. If an affected target is down by a precision final blow from Outbreak Perfected, 13 nanites will spawn, up from the base 9. And aside from outright dealing damage, these nanites also apply a debuff to the affected target, specific to the bullet damage coming from Outbreak Perfected itself. But it is not specific to your Outbreak. If multiple members of a fire team are all wielding the weapon, the bullet damage debuff caused by the nanites is shared by all players using the weapon. So like Malfeasance or Rat King, Outbreak is a weapon that becomes exponentially more powerful with multiple fire team members wielding the weapon together. Alright, Outbreak stability, 46. Doesn't sound good. One would expect the kick from this weapon to be a bit erratic. I mean, you do get some bounce here, a little bit of screen shake, and the gun naturally does walk slightly to the left. But even when spamming the trigger and making no attempt to control the recoil, the grouping remains pretty tight. It's been theorized and pretty much confirmed that Outbreak harbors a hidden perk from Destiny 1 called Persistence. You can see that the burst climbs a bit more when we're pacing out our shots. Continue to smash on the trigger, and we don't see quite as much climb out of it. So definitely a nice feature for the gun. Moving on, reload speeds. At base, this weapon can be reloaded in 1.98 seconds. Reloading while Outlaw is procced will result in a 1.16 second reload. If we're just making use of a single pulse rifle loader mod, our reload speed will be 1.51 seconds. And if we're also under the effect of Outlaw, we're going to see a very quick 0.93 second reload. On to the damage numbers, but do keep in mind,
PvE damage numbers are variable and will change depending on content scaling or enemy tier. That's why I do all of my testing in the Conflux Lost sector on Nessus versus Carl the Colossus, to keep these damage numbers consistent and comparable from video to video.
At base, Outbreak hits Carl for 1,322 points of damage on a crit and scores 798 points of damage to the body. These are the same numbers you can expect from a legendary lightweight pulse rifle sharing the same 450 RPM fire rate. But with Outbreak, every 12th bullet landed can spawn up to 3 nanites, scoring 1,993 points of damage apiece. When they attach to Carl, that's also going to prime him for the increased bullet damage. Here, when those 3 nanites attach to Carl, it moves the crit damage up to 1,718, 30% more damage. When 6 nanites attach, the crit damage jumps up to 3,303. That's a 150% damage increase from the base value. If you attach 9 nanites, either through rapid hits or 1 precision kill spawning the nanite cloud, the next crit will deal 3,387. If you're able to stick on 13 nanites, each bullet is going to crit for 3,526, roughly a 167% damage increase. So huge jumps right off the bat, but things start to tighten up a little bit on the higher end. But these nanites do have a limited shelf life once they attach to a target, and that time frame is approximately 8.5 seconds. So they're not up indefinitely, and they do not reset as more nanites attach to the enemy. The time to empty one magazine comes in at 4.53 seconds, and your reload speed's generally going to fall in that 1.5 to 2 second window in a single target damage scenario. So as the attached nanites begin to expire, you're more or less working to maintain your damage increase with rapid hits. But having a few adds in the vicinity of your primary target can really help out in boosting your weapon's damage. You can see here, after scoring some precision kills on the adds, Carl gets smacked by a bunch of nanites. I'm not 100% sure how many, but there were a lot of them in play here. In this case, a crit versus Carl scores 4,138 points of damage. That's a 213% increase from base, over tripling the bullet's damage. Nice short term, but it's not going to be sustainable. The same theory applies when multiple players are running Outbreak though. With more players, you'll be able to attach more nanites more quickly, rapidly climbing into the upper echelons of Outbreak's damage potential. And unlike just relying on the nanite clouds, this damage is sustainable if all players continue to lay into the target with Outbreak. To give you some sort of general DPS breakdown though, I'm just going to assume that the weapon's being used on its own, and I'm just going to take these damage values from one random instance. But keep in mind that there is going to be some variation due to the random nature of the nanites. On the first magazine in this instance, between the bullet damage and the damage from the nanites, if we landed all crits, we could have registered 89,277 points of damage. In terms of DPS, given the 4.53 second time to empty, that's 19,708. Working off the first magazine's damage increase with the second mag, the max potential damage here could have been 141,108. DPS, 31,150 for the follow-up magazine. That's around 230,335 points of maximum potential damage for 2 full magazines. And this depletes over 2/3 of Carl's total health bar, even with some missed crits mixed in. If we consider the 1.98 second reload speed and the 9.06 seconds to dump 72 rounds, the combined damage per second for 2 mags is around 20,863. If you'd like to gain a little more perspective on these damage values, I would recommend my Osteo Striga review. They're actually very comparable weapons in terms of their utility. Both are exotic, both are kinetic, both are great for ad clearing, and do strong single target damage. One's obviously a pulse rifle and the other's an SMG, but they can fill similar roles. I'll have that video linked on the end screen of this one if you would like to check it out. On to PvP, Outbreak is registering 25 points of damage on a crit and 16 points of damage to the body. This puts the optimal time to kill at 0.87 seconds by landing 8 crits, and the body shot time to kill comes in at 1.6 seconds with 13 shots landed. But since 12 rapid hits will spawn 1 to 3 nanites, that 13th bullet may not be necessary. Interesting change incoming next season though. Lightweight 450 RPM pulse rifles are getting a damage buff. Outbreak is not technically a lightweight pulse since it doesn't carry the intrinsic mobility boost, but the damage profile is anchored to that of the archetype. The body shot damage is going from 15 to 16, which is a little bit confusing because it's already showing 16 damage. Even with your legendaries, here with Chattering Bone, 16 damage on a body shot. But this should allow for a true 12 bullet body shot kill versus Guardians running tier 6 resilience or less. Crit damage is going from 24.75 to 26.4, making 7 crits and 1 body shot the best lethal bullet combination. Or 6 crits and 2 bodies versus lower tier resilience Guardians. Of course, you will need to be using this weapon within its optimal range, which is currently sitting at right around 36 meters, to achieve these results. But the physical effect of the range stat on pulse rifles will be getting a slight bump next season, so you can probably expect a little bit more reach when these changes occur. Back to the nanites now. With the catalyst unlocked, they'll deal 13 points of damage when they attach to a target, up from 10 without the catalyst. The nanite spawning is unchanged from that of PvE. 1 to 3 on rapid hits, 9 on a precision kill, 4 if an enemy dies with nanites attached to them, and 13 if a precision kill downs a nanite afflicted target. The nanite proximity for its effective tracking radius is right around 8 meters. The lingering time of the nanites also remains unchanged at about 4 seconds, but they do seem to fall off a target a little bit quicker. 6 seconds here, we're looking at about 8 in PvE. As far as the bullet damage increase is concerned, 5 attached nanites will achieve the maximum damage boost, taking crits from 25 to 44, up 76%. Each singular nanite is adding approximately 16% more damage up to that point. A few things to note here. Attaching just 2 nanites to an enemy allows for a 2-burst kill with 4 crits and 2 body shots after factoring in the nanite damage. 5 attached nanites is where 1-burst kills become possible. 44 per crit, 3 crits, 132 points of damage, plus 65 from the nanites, that's 197. Downed Guardian at most resilience tiers. If a full cloud of 9 nanites attaches, 2 crits or 3 body shots can achieve lethal damage. Home run scenario, 13 nanites attach, you sneeze on the target and they die. 13 nanites and 1 body shot will deal 195 points of damage, enough to drop a Guardian at most resilience tiers. But after this very lengthy testing section, I'll try to be brief when talking performance, and then we'll get things wrapped up. Regarding Outbreak's performance, this is still a very, very good gun. I mean, this is a weapon that was being used to melt raid bosses by fire teams when it was initially released. And while that was back in 2019, which feels like a lifetime ago, Outbreak never got any major nerfs, at least not any that I'm aware of. So it remains a very formidable single target damage dealer. In general though, Outbreak has seen a bit of a resurgence during the Witch Queen expansion. It's currently sitting at number 18 in the PvE usage charts according to Destiny Tracker, with it and Osteostriga being the only 2 exotic primaries to crack the top 20. A few things factor into this. The reintroduction of the catalyst, for sure. The 40% damage buff for all exotic primaries versus red bar targets as of the Witch Queen expansion. And Unstoppable Pulse Rifle being featured in the seasonal artifact. All in all, some pretty solid reasons for equipping Outbreak currently. In PvE, this really feels like a weapon that can do it all. Very solid ad clearing capability with the aggressively tracking nanites. And if you do have the catalyst unlocked, you're going to be putting a lot of nanites on the field at one time. Outbreak has respectable single target damage, even if you're using it as a solo player. It gets a lot better when multiple fire team members are using it, but just on its own, the damage is nothing to scoff at. And the ability to stun unstoppable champions, either through the bullet damage or the nanite damage, is a nice added benefit this season. And this is just an all-around good feeling weapon that's fun to shoot, at least in my opinion. The animations and the sound effects really make the gun come alive. But I'd say Outbreak is a pretty safe pick for any tier of PvE content that you may be heading into. In PvP, Outbreak Perfected doesn't feel quite as strong, but it's still plenty serviceable. The weapon is accurate, the weapon feels stable, and the potential for free damage and a weapon damage boost from the nanites is a very nice bonus. Especially in your 6v6 game modes where there are inherently more targets for those nanites to chase down. But it can also do some work in your competitive game modes if you can score a pick on a team that tends to do a lot of handholding. The biggest detracting factor for me is that 450 RPM pulse rifle damage profile. And while it should get better in the future, I can only assess it on what it's doing now. A 0.87 second optimal time to kill isn't terrible, but there are plenty of weapons out there that can down targets as quick, if not quicker. And you gotta be on target, 8 consecutive crits, 100% headshot accuracy, very little room for error. And the body shot time to kill at 1.6 seconds isn't great either, bested within the weapon class by high impacts, adaptives, and rapid fires. Another issue, Outbreak's bullets apply very little flinch to enemy players, allowing them to accurately return fire while in the midst of the gunfight. And while the nanites and the bonus damage can be quite impressive when they do occur, they're not helping on that initial kill. And they're not helping unless secondary targets are in close proximity. The damage increase is tied to a target that gets struck by the nanites, unlike a damage buff like Kill Clip where it's applicable versus any target that gets struck by the bullet. But I've always viewed Outbreak Perfected in PvP as a feel weapon. Some days it's working great for me. I'm landing shots, nanites are grabbing enemy players, I can drop those targets quick, the gun's doing its thing. It feels really good. Other times it's just not happening. I'm getting outgunned, outdueled, the enemy team's just playing too spread out. When that's the case, Outbreak gets put away. There's no reason to force the issue here. There are plenty of great guns for PvP that can hold their own just as well as this one can. Overall though, Outbreak Perfected is a very good exotic, and one that you definitely should look at picking up from the exotic weapon kiosk if you don't have it already. And if you're someone who just had the exotic catalyst drop for you, it's well worth the time to punch it out. It's not a complete game changer for the gun, but it makes an already strong weapon a bit stronger. And sorry that wasn't exactly brief, but I just had a lot to say about what is a pretty interesting gun. If you did enjoy this video though, or found it useful and helpful in any way, please remember to leave it a like, and consider subscribing to the Ironworker Gaming channel if you're not already. I'll certainly have more Destiny 2 content coming your way in the near future. And if you do have any additional thoughts on the weapon, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I try to read every single one of them and get back to as many as I can. So if you do leave a comment, you're never just shouting at the sky on this channel. But hey, with all that being said, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out this weapon review. You guys are awesome, and I will catch you on the next one.